Hello, everybody. This is Frank with Iron Age News on the South Florida Conservative News site. It is Saturday, October 11th, 11 a.m. And for those of you in the know, there is a Phase 1 peace accord. Phase 1 peace accord, not a peace treaty, enacted between the Israelis and Hamas. And everybody is over the moon except for everybody who was not over the moon. First caveat to this, as we have in the written document, nothing like a fully detailed final peace treaty has been publicly published or verified. What is available is a ceasefire peace framework agreement, which is what they're calling a phase one, that Israel, Hamas, and mediators have accepted. The details are still unsettled on many critical issues, and we have given you in the following a simplified summary of what is known, what remains to be decided, and how the roles of Hamas, Israel, and foreign actors might play out. This is all completely factual. This is not conspiracy theory. This is from the actual documentation. So, what the current accord does or will require: a ceasefire and a halt to hostilities. Fighting between Israel and Hamas in Gaza will stop. A ceasefire will stop once the agreement is approved. If you hear about Israel blowing things up or Hamas shooting people, it's because the document hasn't signed. Middle Eastern warfare allows you to kill people up till the minute that the document is signed. It's their kind of war. Once again, read the book. Harold Rhodes, Modern Islamic Warfare. Read it. Israel will begin withdrawing some of its troops from the Gaza, pulling back to agreed upon lines. Humanitarian access will increase. That is aid, food, fuel, medical supplies will be allowed into Gaza under conditions set by the deal. Hostage prisoner exchange. Hamas agrees to release all living hostages in custody and return the remains of deceased hostages, usually within a set period. Let's say 72 hours. That's not it, but let's say that, after the withdrawal of troops is completed. In return, Israel will release a large number of Palestinian prisoners, women and children, and others that are held in Israeli jails. Now we're coming to reconstruction and humanitarian relief and reopening the borders. Gaza will receive large-scale reconstruction efforts backed by foreign funding. The deal plans to reopen border crossings, Egypt, etc., to allow goods, people, and aid to move in and out of Gaza more freely. This current deal is sometimes called, as they said, a phase one of a longer, possibly 20-point plan. Many more issues have yet to be ironed out. What remains unsettled before people ruin your breakfast out at the diner? What remains unsettled and controversial? The big open questions that are not yet resolved. The disarmament of Hamas. Will Hamas have to give up all its weapons and military capacity? The deal language speaks of demilitarization, but exactly when, to what extent, and how to enforce that remains unclear. Obviously, the IDF's idea is to just kill them all, and then you won't have to worry about demilitarizing. That's one way. Okay. Gaza's government. Who rules Gaza? The accord does not clearly say Hamas will continue to govern Gaza. It also does not say that they will not. Okay. There is speculation that governments will shift, perhaps gradually. You're still leaving it in control of a terrorist army. How could this go wrong? Future Israeli presence. Even with withdrawal, Israel might retain certain security control, airspace, the borders, and forces near Gaza, probably in the Philadelphia corridor, which is so they can choke them out once they start to bring weapons back over from Egypt, which probably will start the day after they sign this thing. Enforcement guarantees. How will violations be monitored or punished? What recourse will either side have if the other backs out? The role of the Palestinian Authority is probably just to suck up food and heat, as it always does. But the question is, will the Palestinian Authority which also has part of the West Bank, eventually take control in Gaza. We would hope not, but God knows what's going to happen. Has been suggested in some plans, but it is not guaranteed because the Palestinians in general seem to be incapable of ruling themselves without these strongman uh, fucking terrorist organizations around to keep them in line. The timeline sequencing, who does what when, that's still all out for debate. And then who will run Gaza? There's one thing to say I am, there's another thing to say that to actually do it. Will it be Hamas? Will it be Israelis or others? We're coming back to this because it's very important. A simplified view of the possibilities under the accord with what is most likely given current statements that have been out there. Okay. Thank God that, we have a lot of good propaganda, meaning propaganda in the West, but the Al Jazeera's and everybody else are just as bad. So you do hear a lot of junk and has to be sifted through, things like that. Hamas is not guaranteed to continue as the ruler of Gaza under all these proposals. Doesn't mean they won't shadow govern. It's happened before. The plan seems to envision its military capabilities being curtailed and its role reduced. It has been. It's called the war. It did a good job of it. Some proposals suggest Gaza will be managed by technocrats or an independent administrative body not explicitly tied to Hamas, at least in the short term. Over time, after reforms, there may be a transition to control by the Palestinian Authority, especially if Hamas has been sidelined. We don't even know exactly where Iran's going to stand in this. Somebody needs to go knock on their door and hit them with a newspaper again and say, hey, no, no, no. That will slow this whole thing down. Israel is unlikely to directly run Gaza under the accord. See what they've been doing recently, right? Though it may retain security oversight, once again, probably the Philadelphia corridor and some other areas, checking for weapons, controlling the borders, and ruling the airspace. So in plain terms, Hamas's direct control is expected to be curtailed or phased out. Whether it happens or not, who knows? Governance will shift to non-military, more neutral, or internationally supervised bodies, and eventually possibly to the Palestinian Authority, which we would hope would not happen because it's the same shit all over again. There's going to be a very serious rule in there that doesn't come up in this documentation so much. It's going to be the role of Saudi Arabia and Jordan and countries like that. What you do see here, the foreign actors part, is an interesting combination. Egypt, who really doesn't want to continue to have problems, is ready to sort of convulse into revolution due to the Muslim Brotherhood on its own. It doesn't need this trouble. They're in it. The Qataris and Turkey have already acted as intermediaries in negotiating the deal. Theoretically, they're the ones doing it. So the good thing with the Trump administration, even though people are going to cry, the Trump administration plays a leading role in drafting, promoting, and enforcing the plan. Trump can share the spotlight with people. People don't believe it, but Egypt, Qatar, and Turkey are in there at the behest of Trump, or allowed to stay in there at the behest of Trump. Yeah, it's how that works. So foreign states and international organizations, example, the United Nations, may oversee and guarantee compliance, i.e. checking that both Israel and Hamas uphold their commitments. So basically, they'll just monitor Israel. Hamas will go on about what it does. Coordination Center, civil and military, has been proposed to monitor implementation, track aid, and oversee the transition. That's going to probably be a hard maybe, because nobody wants us to turn into another USAID taxpayer-funded fucking re-education of the terrorist party, which it could easily do. Now, the funding and reconstruction, the Gulf states, Saudi Arabia, and Jordan, the Arab Emirates, things like that, and donor nations are expected to fund rebuilding efforts in Gaza, rebuilding the homes, infrastructure, hospitals, etc. U.S. companies are probably not going to get a dime out of this, which is a shame. So a lot of our money went into it. But so we don't look like the vultures that we probably are, it'll go to these shit European countries and stuff like that. The financial role of international bodies, the World Bank, once again, the United Nations, will be critical in distributing aid, and they have to ensure transparency, and they have to hold actors accountable, which means that we will have to have hardcore surveillance in there to make sure that they don't build another underground terror network. And I mean physically under the ground. Border control, and sorry, it's sort of monotonous, but this is what you're going to want. We also have another document on the South Florida Conservative. If you want to take it with you when people lie openly in public and you just want to say, shut the fuck up, this is what's really happening. But I digress. It's been a rough morning, so you can imagine. I'll bring that up in my next video, which I have to do right after this. Egypt will likely retain a significant role, okay, because Gaza shares that big border with Egypt, and that's the Rafah crossing. That's where all the weapons and drugs and terrorists came in last time. Controlling that crossing, managing who, what, or why enters the Gaza from there. Egypt's going to be held accountable this time. Israel's not going to put up with this. A number of guys may commit suicide in Egypt if that shit starts up again. International actors may supervise how and when goods, people, and aid cross between Israel and Gaza to ensure no weapons smuggling. Makes sense, right? So far, we're not crazy on this stuff. The security guarantees, some foreign states may guarantee security, pledging support if one side violates the agreement. They may also help enforce disarmament and various other, we'll say, spy stuff, which will probably be the Jordanians, obviously the Israelis, shit like that. So the current accord is a framework. This is what people are going to tell you. It's a peace. It is not. The current accord is a framework, first phase, ceasefire only, not yet a comprehensive treaty. It spells out the ceasefire, the withdrawal, the hostage swaps, the humanitarian access, the reconstruction. It does not settle who will run Gaza, who gets disarmed, how long it takes, shit like that. Does not explain Hamas's military role. Should it be gone? Yes, completely. Yes. Who's going to police that area up? Well, we have Egypt, Qatar, Turkey, and the U.S. are in as critical players, but the U.S., as we're going to talk about in a minute, is not going to play that game. They are there as mediators, guarantors, funders, and monitors. There should be not one non-Islamic country with guns inside of the Gaza laying down the law, because that's what brings about this whole vendetta killing shit, and it just continues. So the key risks here are the agreements breaking down, which they could do the minute, I guarantee you, start getting those bodies back from Hamas, and you see what they did to those people, which is why they've kept them for so long. One of the reasons you keep a body as long as they have, one, it's the weird way they fight wars. Two, if I did a lot of really sick sex shit to the person, it's better to turn the skeleton back in than give them a body to work with, because Israeli forensic guys are pretty damn good at noticing crimes that have been committed on people. Just putting that out there. But they do want the bodies back. So they will go through a lot of hurdles to do that. If they renege on any of that, it's already a deal killer. All right. If they don't get exactly whatever it is, 45 people back, war's back in action. Right. So that's where you're going to see the disputes. And that's where we are at this point. Trump, I think, is flying over there. I don't know if he's there today or he's there tomorrow. He didn't call me this morning. He doesn't write. You know how it is. So that's what we have. We have a phase one peace accord, not a peace treaty. Nobody has anything binding at this point. Nobody has stopped shooting anybody until they sign this. Once again, you have to understand how the Middle Easterners fight. They will fight up until the minute that they sign that thing, and they will continue to fight until somebody calls and tells them to knock it off. That's totally acceptable in their part of the world. So all you Jew haters out there, because you're starting to really get on my nerves this week, that's what goes on there. Israelis are bombing them because they're shooting at them. and they're going to continue until this document is signed. After that, it's probably still going to do it. There'll be isolated assassinations on both sides because that's how they fight a war. They're not Westerners. Grow up. All right, so that's all we have for this. Hopefully you stay tuned. We have a follow-up video. We're going to discuss the only facts available on the 200 U.S. troops that are being sent to Israel. And no, it's not the Delta Force going there to break up some bad problem. So on that note, have a good day, and I will talk to you later on. Goodbye.